Hi, everybody. So, today what we're going to talk about is this idea that we usually have of our ability to grow and change. A view which usually takes the position that we improve over time, that we are conditioned to think a certain way, and that we recondition ourselves. And whereas there might be some truth to this, I believe there's a much better way of looking at our growth that can help us to understand ourselves, to live out our potential, and to act in ways that really help us be free and do the things that God wants us to do in life. And so I want to propose to you two views. One is the view that our mind is mechanical and needs to be renewed, so to speak, by being retrained. And the other one is that our mind is more like a person who is hypnotized, who wakes up out of trances. This problem is important, or this distinction is important to understand, very important to understand, because a lot of times we can make our problems bigger and make them last longer and make them more complicated and go about solving them the incorrect ways if we don't have the right understanding of our growth. And we also won't know how to act based on the type of growth we observe in ourselves. Because the thing is that any person at any time can think anything. We are not necessarily bound to thought in the same way that we are bound to the shape of our body or something like that. Thought is not something that is bound, that is necessarily something that, like, you have to go, okay, I have this childhood pattern, I need to really think it differently, and I have to keep thinking it differently, and maybe if I tell myself 100 different things, I'll think differently. If you come to believe something is not true, you instantaneously do not believe it. Somebody who, for example, let's say the alarm goes off and you think the house is on fire. You run around in the house, you look, and you realize that what happens is the battery has gone dead in one of the detectors, and that's why it's going off. So then you realize that it's not so much that there's a fire, it's that there's another explanation. So you no longer, when you understand the explanation, you no longer keep looking for the fire in the house. You no longer are afraid of the fire. You may have some leftovers of fear of the fire, but you're not actively thinking that the house is burning down anymore. You don't need to, like, convince yourself that the house is not burning down. You don't need to keep telling yourself it's not burning down, it's not burning down, it's not burning down. You know it's not burning down. So the thing is, sometimes we think that it takes a long time to recondition our beliefs. The thing is, I don't think that that's true. The thing may be that we sometimes don't know what our beliefs are. We sometimes don't know. We really don't. We actually still have a reason to believe them. We hold on to them for some reason, even if we don't want them. So maybe we have some motive for holding on to them. We don't know what the beliefs are. And ultimately, I think it's this idea that our beliefs have to stick around. Like, oh, I always thought that way, I'm going to think that way. You can feel completely differently about something almost instantaneously if you have a new perspective on it. Let's say, I think that the things that seem to recondition us are really things that just give us the opportunity to realize that our beliefs are false. So I don't believe that we actually get reconditioned. I believe that we have opportunities to see through the beliefs and believe differently. I don't believe that our mind is mechanical. I believe our mind operates in trances more than mechanisms and things like that. So it's kind of like we have to just have enough time to wake up, or even if we do procedures to question our thoughts, it's about realizing that the thoughts aren't true. It's not really about, like, okay, mechanically, let me try to think this thought again instead of that thought. Like okay, this machine's going to think this thought. Okay, yeah. It's more about a mind that believes things or doesn't, or understands things or doesn't. And it's by getting a new perspective, rather than pounding into our head something different. We don't have to pound it into your head. And sometimes if we believe these things about the way the mind works, we subtly end up trying to, all right, I'll think all these affirmations. I mean, and it might not be bad to do that, especially in certain contexts. If you're thinking it in a way that you're doing something, along the lines of a new age thing, that's not good. But if you're just trying to, practical level, be like, okay, I'm not a terrible person. I'm not a terrible person. I'm not a terrible person. Instead of just looking and saying, is it true that I'm a terrible person? And just kind of realizing if it's true or not. We don't want to just fight the mind mechanically. And this is very important because sometimes we can become bound to a vision of ourselves that is not fair because we can make our trances into our identity. We can say, hey, oh, I'm the kind of person who's afraid of public speaking. I'm the kind of person who's so obsessive. I'm the kind of person who doesn't like kids. I'm the kind of person who thinks this. No, you're right now. That's what you're believing. That's what your beliefs. That's the trance you're in right now. But if you're in a different trance, you'll have a different belief. You can tell that this is true because if you were hypnotized, you would just kind of change your beliefs because you're just open to it. You're just kind of allowing somebody to kind of put you in a different trance. And when you're in that trance, you'd be feeling something different because you're just open to it because your mind is a mind, and minds when they think thoughts can think other thoughts. So you can focus on if you feel so you could think, okay, um, kids are loud, annoying, or you could be like, kids are really cute. You don't really have any of these beliefs. You don't have these beliefs. You do these beliefs. Beliefs are not something you have, they're something you do. And they seem like something you have because you habitually do them. Or you're doing them in the background because you still think it's true. So it's something that I think we have to remember because sometimes we can be trying to figure out like, oh, like maybe there's something wrong with me because you want to move ahead with a life situation, but am I really ready for this? Or do I need to grow more? Or do I need to change more? Or it's going to take me a long time to change. Will I be ready for this? And a lot of times we really don't need to think about things this way. We need to be able to look at our minds and say, hey, this is just something that I'm in a trance with, just something that I'm kind of confused about right now. I'm buying into right now. It's like I believe you right now. It's hypnotized by right now. It's not something that I'm conditioned to believe. Sure, there's things that you're used to being hypnotized into. Sure, you might need time and processes to re-hypnotize yourself. But hypnosis is not a permanent thing. It's like a trance that you're in. Our thoughts, I believe, are much more like trances than like traces that are left in your mind, these type of things. So that is what I wanted to share because this enables us, like if let's say you want to make a life decision, like, oh, well, I have all this conditioning, I have all this baggage. Well, do you really have this baggage or do you just do that baggage habitually? I mean, I'm not saying it like that sounds insulting, but I'm not saying it like that. Do you have the baggage? Like let me use the example because this is what I want to set. I want to help you be free to do stuff in your life. So the thing I want to say is, do I like if I say, all right, like I'm afraid of having children because children are loud. All right, that's one way of thinking. But let me look at children and then think they're cute. Okay, now let's see that that's true. Okay, let's look at that, or let's just realize that that is so. You don't need to like condition myself. Oh, I need to recondition my mind before I make a choice about like whether to have children, for example. There's no need to recondition things. You just need to realize you're in a trance and get into another one. Or if you say, "Oh, I always thought this thing is terrible. I think this is awful." But just realize, okay, I think it would be terrible if I became, a monk, or it'd be terrible if I did this. Well, okay, why is that terrible? Well, it's because you have a habitual trance about that thing. You're having a judgmental trance about that vocation or whatever. It'd be terrible if I was a husband. You have a habitual trance about it. So the thing is just to focus on other things and get into a different trance. It's not about reconditioning. And this is something that's important because it makes our identity less static. It makes our identity more dynamic and allows us to understand that like, we're not stuck, that we can believe other things, that our mind is not stuck in its ways, and that we don't have false beliefs about how stuck the mind is. And this helps us get unstuck and get into our life. And so I hope that this is helpful to you in reframing the mind from thinking, okay, it's like this mechanical thing to this thing that's in trances, so you can step out of those trances and live the life that you want to live.